All right, for this last lesson, we're basically going to cover other quality management models. The first one is the Walter Schubert model, which we already know is the PDCA. That's Plan, Do, Check, Act. That's one of the additional quality management models. The other two, the ideal model and ISO certifications, are the ones we're going to go a little bit more in depth with. So the ideal model essentially started out in software engineering, but then they realized that it could be applicable to a variety of other fields as well. And so it's a 5-step process that spells out the word ideal, including initiating, diagnosing, establishing, acting, and learning. And so in each section, there's certain stages and certain steps we do within each stage of the ideal model. First, as we initiate it, we want to figure out what is the context of our quality management that we're trying to change. And then we're going to go throughout our organization and start, finding those champions that can help us with this quality management idea or this quality management process. In the diagnosing stage, we're going to be basically looking internally. So we're going to analyze the current condition. And as we've talked about before, we can use that SWOT analysis, identifying our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then we're going to develop recommendations during this diagnosing process. That's going to help us in the next phase of establishing where we're going to set our priorities. So if we want to accomplish increasing our guest satisfaction by 2% in the next month, then what are our priorities going to be focused on? What are the things that we can do and have the most control over and implement that will help us achieve that goal? Okay, and then also in that establishing phase, we're going to develop our approach and plan the action. So this is kind of still in that planning phase. Before we actually take any action, we want to put everything down on paper. We want to put down what the beginning point is, what our ending point is, what our goals are, what our vision statement is going to be. And then ultimately, then we start acting on all the plans that we've made. So we're going to create all those solutions to the quality management concerns that we have. We're going to test those specific solutions. So we might run like a little pilot. We might test it in a small section. A lot of times corporate restaurants will do this. San Antonio, for example, has Hard Rock Cafe. And Hard Rock Cafe San Antonio is one of the test kitchens. And so if they want to do a new menu rollout, then they may test out a new menu item here in San Antonio and see how well it does. And then they're going to refine it and work out any of the kinks that may have happened. Ultimately on paper, a recipe looks one way, but actually in production, we might realize that we might need to do something different. We might need to change something. And so we're actually going to tweak it. We're going to refine that, and then we actually implement it. And then in the learning phase, that last phase, we kind of talk about the lessons that we've learned. So we're going to talk about these are things that went well, these are things that didn't go so well, what lessons did we learn, and what does the future look like? Now, part of that continuous improvement, we want to look at what does the future look like for our quality management program. ISO is the International Organization for Standardization, okay? And so essentially, the two different ISO quality management models, the ISO 9000 is a standardized list and standardized way of approaching quality management for the day-to-day business. So it addresses business procedures, it addresses different departments and what they should be doing to maintain that quality management. And then also the ISO 14000 more focuses on the environmental management solutions and those different standards that we need. So, as businesses become more green, as they become more aware of their environmental impact, if they want to be ISO 14000 certified, then they have to go through the list of certifications, all the different standards. They have to approve those. And so to get this certification for ISO, an independent organization will come in, someone from ISO will come in and evaluate the organization to see if you meet the standards. And if you do, great. You get this ISO certification that tells people, travelers, it tells meeting planners, it tells all these different people that are going to come to your restaurants or your hotels that you have this certification, that you have taken this time, you've taken the effort to implement these programs. And so with that ISO 9000, that's your overall business operations for quality management. And then the ISO 14000 is essentially just the focus on the environmental perspective of being more environmentally aware and conscious of your impacts on the industry. All right, so that's it for chapter 3, and you can move on to chapter 4. And then after chapter 5 is done, then you take a quiz on all 3 chapters. Best of luck.